Why do I believe in God? Here are just a few reasons. The law of biogenesis. Life only comes from life. This is the only thing we have observed scientifically. To think otherwise is foolish because we have no evidence for it. Information theory. Information only comes from information or a mind. This is also observable science because we have never seen information being produced, not this type of information, being produced by something other than a mind or information. Morality. Without a moral standard such as God, a set moral standard, all we have are opinions. You may say majority or society or a nation or culture dictates what morality is, but in the end, society versus another society are going to disagree. Thus, opinion versus opinion, we never agree. Was Hitler right? Was he not right? Well, he thought he was right. So, opinion versus opinion, we don't know unless we have a moral standard. The presence of evil. This indicates there is good. Since there is evil, we know there's good, just as a curved line tells us that there are straight ones. The curved line is not like the straight one, so we can therefore see why the straight line is straight. DNA. DNA is a molecule that encodes the genetic instructions used in the development and functioning of all known living organisms and many viruses. So this is an incredibly designed system. It's evidence of design or intelligence. Digitally coded instructions in us. DNA not cross-compatible between different animals for reproduction because there's a software disconnect. You can't just take the DNA of a rabbit and they can't mate with a turtle, for example. So DNA is it's a great evidence for design. Finely tuned universe. There's an overwhelming level of precision needed for the entire active universe to function. It's indescribable the amount of precision that exists for us to be spinning at 1,000 miles per hour and rotating. I think it's 66,000 miles per hour going around the sun in motion, and nobody's in charge. Well, that's a scary thought if God doesn't exist. Well, the cosmological argument. Basically, the universe is finite because we know now that it had a beginning. So therefore, it's not infinite. So therefore, something beyond the universe had to make it. The law of conservation of matter is not created. Well, this law was obviously broken at some point in time, and if God is God, then he can break the law since he made it. And as I said, he exists outside of matter and outside of space and time, if you want to call time. Well, there's some people that don't believe in time, is why I say this, but there's obviously a past, otherwise calendars would be obsolete, and there's obviously a future. 1 second from now is probably bound to happen, but anyway. See, 1 second from now already occurred. Okay, the cell. More advanced than any technology humans can create. Software, compatible coding, instructions, machines, design. There's no chance that this just arrived out of chance. Symbiotic relationships. For everything present in our universe. Simultaneous interdependency for functionality. This is seen in a lot of organisms. For example, I think the termite has a little critter inside of it that depends on the termite, and the termite depends on it for existence. These things cannot just evolve over time. Also, like the whole planet, the carbon dioxide and oxygen cycle that we have with plants and other things. Another point is order. Second law of thermodynamics, entropy. Everything tends toward disorder, naturally speaking. This is highly evident. Now, some people try to say that in a closed system is when it's whenever they say the sun is what we can use for energy, but the sun in our world is only destructive unless we have a mechanism by which we can use the energy for our benefit. Otherwise, it's destructive. Um, Kind of like gasoline in a car, it's not going to do anything unless you have a motor that can use it for something. So the second law of thermodynamics, we can see everything tends toward disorder. We get wrinkly because of the sun. The paint of our houses scrapes off because of it, and many other things that are highly evident, such as our body. We start out healthy and then we decline. Everything's in decline is the point here. But at some point, this law had to be broken by something greater than it, and that's God in this example. The human body, a body plan for systems, millions and millions of digital instructions, no trial and error, live feed. This is in 3D, by the way. No spare parts. The body is error correcting, self-healing, muscle strengthen with use, for example. It's just incredibly designed, and to say that it's not would be self-refuting, because you would have to use your mind to say my intelligent mind is poorly designed. Well, if you believe that, then how can we trust your mind? So see, it's self-refuting. The consciousness with knowledge is what it means. We are unsatisfied by this world, and this leads us to believe there is more than just physical world. Source of order is hidden. We don't know how the mind works. Intangible being of you controls the tangible, which is your body. 97% of the human body is self-functioning, but still you are the one that decides what it does when you raise your hand or when you go to type on your keyboard. You are deciding that you are going to do that. So you are responsible for your actions. Genetics, biological software and 4-bit coding, 3D by the way, works in extreme precision. Okay, design, the teleological argument, which is basically technology that we have as humans tries to imitate the design that we see in the world. For example, the wings of a bird, we try to imitate it with planes. A microphone, we try to imitate the human ear, or the ears on organisms, to pick up the sound as a microphone does. Video camera, we try to imitate that seeing eye that was designed. The web feet, we try to imitate the web feet with the scuba diving gear that we use to move better in the water, because we know the system works. Memory cards, we know that since the brain is great for holding memory, we try to replicate that function so we can store data and use it later in the future. The pulley system, this is very evident in muscles and ligaments and bones. Whenever a muscle flexes, it pulls up for example, the quad. When you flex it, it pulls up the leg and the foot. Suction cups of an octopus, for example. We use that design in our cars with different gadgets like GPS or radar detectors and whatnot. Active camouflage. This is a really good trait. It's one of the best I've seen on octopuses or octopi, whatever you want to call it, and also squid. They have, and what is the other one? Certain kind of fish that is very, very good at hiding itself, and we try to use this in like war and army gear. The amphitheater acoustic, for example, like the mouth, is kind of like a cave. When you open your mouth, and like whenever, for example, when people are singing, they try to open their mouth to project the sound better. Well, we try to copy this same design whenever we design these theaters, so they can project the sound to the audience better. The motors, there's a lot of little tiny motors in like the flagellum that we use the same concept in our cars and anything with a motor, really. Well, let's go to natural selection. Natural selection is a top to bottom process. It's not bottom to top process. That is, that natural selection will only limit. It will not create anything new. So people try to say that we started with a non-winged animal, and over time we limited this non-winged animal and created an animal with wings. Well, that is just not possible because it's a top to bottom process and not the other way around. Lack of transitional fossils between, for example, orders or family in the taxonomy ring. The supposed millions upon millions of years worth have disappeared, and now we only have gaps. It just seems very unlikely that we should have millions and millions of years worth of fossils, but yet we don't see them anywhere. And that's what all these scientists start looking for, but they can't find them. Evidence of the flood. We see fault lines, mountains and valleys, the springs of the deep in the great oceans. People try to say that Noah couldn't fit all these animals because they calculate this massive number of species. Well, they're throwing in all these bugs and fish, different species that live in water and other ones, but only 2% of the species would have been on board. That was mostly made up of animals that breathe with their nostrils. The nostrils was the breath of life. Hundreds of accounts of the global flood have been recorded, very similar to the biblical flood, across cultures and nations, including a family, the vessel, and animals, and the destruction of the rest. Only the biblical account gives dimensions of the ark. Somebody said only 8,000 genera would be needed to produce the spectrum of creatures that we see today, and all of those genera would have fit just fine upon the ark, given their dimensions and the number of animals. The evidence for dragons or dinosaurs with man. People often make the claim that dragons are mythical characters, but really they're just dinosaurs because, as we can see here, the term dinosaur wasn't invented until 1841, so it's a relatively new term. Of course, these older texts aren't going to have the word dinosaur in there because this word wasn't made up yet. So back then they used the word dragon. And there's a lot of evidence for this. You can go online and look up these videos. They show artifact after artifact and account after account of people talking about these dinosaurs, and they're making them in clay pots and sculpting them on walls and stuff. But we found the bones of the dinosaurs, so of course they were here, tissue and also blood. Prophecies, 365 strictly biblical prophecies completed hundreds of years after writing in great detail. So, examples are empires rising and defeated, and the names of them, and how they were defeated. Stretching of heavens 1,600 years in advance before science knew that the heavens are stretching. The life of the flesh is in the blood. People used to think that you should bleed someone to heal them in science and medicine, but now we know that the life of the flesh is in the blood, so that's nonsense. We should have read the Bible for that one. Mountains and valleys in the ocean. People used to think the ocean floor was flat, but now we know mountains and valleys, just like the Bible said. The Messiah, another prophecy in great detail, by the way, um, where he was going to be born and all that. Miracles preceded by a messenger. We knew that John the Baptist was going to come before as a messenger. Death in great detail, burial, punishment he received, the birth, the cities, the actions people took, amount of, oh yeah, the amount Judas Iscariot paid to betray in the appropriate currency, by the way. I think it was 30 shekels, silver coins. Law of conservation of energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, speaking naturally. And this is obviously broken because we have energy now, and so somebody with energy outside of this had to set this in motion. The level of influence Jesus had despite the great persecution, death of martyrs. The first witnesses had nothing to gain for lying. All they got was death, so why would they even make it up? There's also embarrassing testimonies and other reasons why we should believe the New Testament. Frank Turek has a great argument about that. Also, check out Dr. William Lane Craig. He's a good philosopher as well, and good apologist too. The improbability of everything being accidental. Well, a lot of people have tried to put a number on this, and it's just the biggest number you can think of, basically. It's absolute mathematical insanity, as one person put it. The worst odds we have ever known. So basically, all of this in conjunction makes my belief in God. But this is only part of it. I mean, I can't say everything I've heard. This is only part of it, but the improbability of the contrary is a really big one that we all need to consider. But that's it. Thanks for watching.